Ere is a certain beauty born from simplicity. Awet here tre trung, a racket clay pot, even forgotten scraps of wood. Each can become a stage where bromeliads bloom like living jewels. This project follows the principle of observe, adapt, and transform, showing us how humble materials can be reborn into a tiny garden that feels like a work of art. Every idea here is more than just planting. It is about composing a small story within your garden, where the vivid colors of bromeliads weave together with the ruggedness of bark, the earthiness of clay, the shimmer of water, and the glow of light. Creativity meets nature, and the result is harmony, charming to the eyes, soothing to the heart. With a touch of patience, a willingness to experiment, and a spirit of play, Anyone can turn her smallest garden into a lush, enchanting retreat. Let us wander through these inspirations together, each one offering a fresh perspective on how tree trunks and old pots can be transformed into timeless beauty. In every garden, there is a quiet poetry waiting to be discovered. A weathered tree trunk, once part of a mighty forest, now rests with lines and cracks carved by time. Instead of being forgotten, it can rise again, as a natural pedestal for bromeliads. Their rosettes of green, red, and yellow fit perfectly into the trunk's crevices, turning something ordinary into a living sculpture. When choosing a trunk, look for one with character. The rough bark, the hollowed-out knots, the unexpected curves. These are gifts from nature that no man-made pot could ever replicate. In a tiny garden, a medium or small trunk is enough. It lifts the bromeliad to eye level, making the plant not just decoration but a centerpiece, a small crown of color above rustic wood. The beauty lies in the pairing. The softness of bromeliad leaves against the hardness of bark, the vibrant hues shining brighter when framed by earthy tones. Try positioning trunks at different angles, upright or leaning, to create layers. A few stones scattered around the base will make the scene feel as though it has always been there, born from the soil itself. This approach is not only artistic but sustainable. Instead of cutting trees, use discarded or fallen wood. By giving it new life, you honor both the plant and the tree it once was. Every time you pass your garden corner, the bromeliads will remind you that beauty often blooms on the shoulders of what has weathered the storm. A humble trunk, reborn, can carry life again. There is a quiet joy in giving forgotten things a second life. An old clay pot, chipped or broken, often sits in the corner of a shed, waiting for its story to end. But in the garden, it can become something entirely new. A vessel of beauty, a stage for bromeliads. A cracked pot, rather than being discarded, can cradle bromeliads in its openings. The rough edges become windows through which bright green leaves and fiery red bracts spill outward, as if the plant had chosen the pot as its home. Half burying a broken pot in the soil creates the illusion of age and permanence, as though the earth itself had lifted it into view. If you enjoy a touch of creativity, painting old pots in soft earthy tones or vibrant tropical colors can deepen the harmony. The colors of the bromeliads will respond, greens appearing richer, reds more radiant, when contrasted with the backdrop of clay. Stacking pots at different angles brings height and variety to a small garden, creating playful layers that guide the eye upward and around. This is not only a design trick, but also a practice of sustainability. By reusing what is worn, you reduce waste and add character to your space. A garden should feel personal, alive with stories, and these pots carry history, of plants once grown, of hands that once tended them. In your tiny garden, every inch matters. By transforming old pots into artistic bases, you create more than decoration. Harmony in a garden is not found in abundance, but in thoughtful placement. A single bromeliad, when set carefully, can carry the weight of beauty. Several together, arranged with intention, create a rhythm that feels both natural and serene. Imagine a weathered trunk with bromeliads tucked into its hollows, some higher, some lower, each leaf turning toward the light. The varied heights create depth, guiding the eye as if you were following a gentle melody. Old pots can be tilted or half-buried nearby, holding other bromeliads that echo the same tune of color and form. When placed this way, the garden begins to feel layered, small yet endlessly rich. Balance is the secret. Too many plants crammed into one corner can overwhelm, while too few may leave the space feeling empty. Instead, think of harmony. Bright reds balanced with calm greens, bold leaves paired with softer moss or small stones. The garden becomes not a collection of plants, but a composition. What makes bromeliads so special is their sculptural nature. Each one already looks like a piece of art, so the role of the gardener is not to force beauty but to frame it. Place them where they can be admired, whether at eye level on a trunk or gently cascading from a pot. Let them breathe, let them shine. In a tiny garden, placement is everything. It transforms the space from scattered to serene, from cluttered to complete. As you arrange your bromeliads, you are not just planting, you are composing a living painting, where each leaf and petal is a brushstroke of nature's harmony. When space is scarce, the sky becomes your canvas. Vertical gardening with bromeliads transforms even the tiniest corner into a layered sanctuary where color and life climb upward. Tree trunks and old pots, once simple objects, become pillars that carry beauty higher, letting every inch of the garden breathe. Imagine an upright trunk standing as a natural tower. At its base, bromeliads cluster in pots, while further up, small crevices or attached containers cradle more plants. Each height offers a different view. Bright rosettes near the ground, softer greens at eye level, fiery reds catching the sun above. This tiered design feels abundant without overwhelming the space. Stacked or tilted pots add to the vertical charm. A broken pot angled just right becomes a pocket where bromeliads spill outward, cascading as though they are flowing from the earth itself. Another pot above creates another level, and soon your garden is not flat but alive with dimension. Vertical design is not only practical, it's enchanting. It draws the eye upward, making a tiny garden feel larger, more dynamic. At night, when soft lights are placed beneath the trunks and pots, the bromeliads glow like lanterns suspended in air. It becomes a private oasis, small yet expansive in feeling. This approach celebrates the genius of using what you already have. No need for grand. Color is the first thing the eye sees, and bromeliads are nature's way of painting with fire and light. Their reds, yellows, and pinks are not shy. They glow like jewels against the muted backdrop of wood and clay. By pairing bromeliads with rustic elements, their vibrancy becomes even more powerful, like a melody rising out of silence. Picture a weathered tree trunk, its surface gray and cracked by time. In its hollows, bromeliads stand tall, their rosettes bursting with color. The contrast is striking. The plant looks even brighter, as though the trunk were a canvas chosen to showcase its brilliance. Around the base, old clay pots hold more bromeliads, their earthy tones softening the scene so the colors can sing. The trick to highlighting bromeliad colors lies in balance. Too much brightness can overwhelm the eyes, But when paired with rustic textures, wood, clay, or stone, the effect is harmonious. A deep green variety beside a fiery red, or a soft yellow glowing against dark bark, creates layers of contrast that draw you in without shouting. In a small garden, these contrasts can transform the atmosphere. Even a single pot with a bold bromeliad, set against a simple log, becomes a centerpiece. By clustering several together, you create a living bouquet, radiant and ever-changing with the light. A garden becomes most alive when it feels like it has been growing for years, slowly weaving its own story. Bromeliads alone are striking, but when paired with moss and vines, they create layers of texture that feel timeless, like a forgotten corner of nature rediscovered. Imagine a rough tree trunk, softened by the velvet of moss. The bromeliad rises boldly from a hollow, its sharp leaves glowing against the softness beneath it. From the sides, thin vines trail downward, moving gently with the breeze. Together, they form a tapestry of contrasts, hard and soft, bold and delicate, bright and muted. The beauty of layering lies in the way it deepens the experience of the garden. From one angle, you see the bright rosette of the bromeliad. From another, your eyes catch the intricate green carpets of moss or the graceful line of a vine. It invites you to linger, to look closer, to notice. Creating this effect is simple yet rewarding. Place moss at the base of tree trunks or around broken pots where moisture gathers. It will thrive naturally. Allow small vines to grow nearby, guiding them gently along the wood. Over time, these companions blend seamlessly with your bromeliads, making the display appear as though it has always belonged to the earth. This layered approach brings not just visual richness but also a calming mood. The moss softens edges, the vines add movement, and the bromeliads stand as radiant focal points. In a tiny garden, this balance turns even a single corner into a world of discovery, a living artwork where every surface holds a deep. Water has a way of awakening a garden, adding movement and sound to what is otherwise still. Bromeliads, with their natural ability to hold water in their central cups, are perfectly suited to accompany small water features. Together, they create a refreshing oasis that feels alive with every ripple and reflection. Picture a cracked clay pot, half buried in the soil, catching rainwater like a small basin. Around its edges, bromeliads cluster in brilliant reds and greens, their leaves arching over the water's surface. The sunlight strikes, and the colors reflect twice, once in the plant, once in the shimmering pool. It is as though the garden has discovered its own mirror. A trickling fountain, even the simplest kind, brings sound to the setting. The gentle splash against stone or clay is soothing, while droplets land softly on bromeliad leaves, making them glisten in the morning light. This interplay of water and plant breathes freshness into a tiny garden, drawing birds and butterflies to share in the calm. Creating such a feature doesn't require grandeur. A broken pot, a shallow bowl, or a stone hollow is enough. Place it near your bromeliads, and let their bold colors frame the quiet water. The rustic materials blend naturally, so the arrangement feels less designed and more discovered, as if nature itself placed them together. In a small space, the presence of water multiplies the sense of. A garden is a living rhythm, changing with the seasons, breathing new colors with every turn of time. Bromeliads, with their bold forms and radiant blooms, can become the heart of this rhythm when arranged thoughtfully through the year. By rotating and combining them with seasonal companions, your garden never falls silent. It always sings. In the warmth of summer, choose bromeliads with fiery hues. Their reds, oranges, and yellows echo the sun itself, filling even the smallest garden with tropical energy. Placed in rustic pots or nestled into weathered trunks, they glow brightest under clear skies, reminding you of nature's abundance. As cooler days arrive, the garden shifts. Bromeliads can share space with ferns or evergreens, their sculptural forms complemented by soft green fronds. The contrast is gentler, more meditative, like a whisper rather than a song. Old pots or logs take on a cozier feel in the shade, holding plants that seem to slow the pace of time. This seasonal care is not only beautiful, but also practical. Rotating bromeliads according to their bloom cycles prevents overcrowding and keeps the display vibrant. A garden that changes is a garden that feels alive, never stagnant, always surprising. Even in a tiny space, these subtle adjustments weave a story of continuity. Visitors notice the freshness, the sense that something new is always unfolding. And for you, the gardener, it becomes a ritual of renewal. Choosing, placing, watching, and waiting. In this way, your bromeliad arrangements become more than decoration. They become a year-round dialogue with nature. Each season A garden becomes unforgettable when it carries both the hand of nature and the touch of the gardener. Bromeliads already arrive with a wild beauty, but when paired with your creativity, they take on a new voice, a collaboration between what grows and what you imagine. Think of an old trunk softened with moss, a hollow filled with bromeliads whose colors blaze against the rough bark. Around them, scatter smooth river stones, driftwood, or even shells collected from past journeys. These small touches do not compete with the plants. They frame them, much like a frame holds a painting, making the artwork shine brighter. Creativity can be subtle, too. A cracked pot painted in earthy tones, or a log carved lightly with a pattern, becomes a personal signature hidden in the garden. These additions whisper your story while allowing the bromeliads to remain the stars. Visitors may not notice everything at once, but as their eyes wander, the details reveal themselves, and the space feels more alive. The harmony of this approach lies in balance. Too many decorations may crowd the plants, but a few well-placed accents enrich the scene. Each stone, each vine, each crafted object becomes part of the rhythm, making the garden feel not designed but discovered. In a tiny garden, these gestures are especially powerful. True beauty in a garden is not just about color or abundance. It is about harmony. The way shapes, textures, and tones come together determines whether the space feels peaceful or chaotic. With bromeliads, whose bold forms and vivid hues easily demand attention, balance becomes the secret to creating a garden that feels both alive and serene. Imagine a corner where rustic pots hold bromeliads of varying shades. A fiery red balanced by a gentle green, a bright yellow softened by a patch of moss. The elements do not compete. They complement, each one enhancing the other. The eye moves naturally across the display, never lingering on just one part, but absorbing the whole scene as if it were a single, unified painting. Balance is achieved through contrast as much as repetition. A rough tree trunk paired with the sleek leaves of a bromeliad. A cluster of bright colors tempered by the stillness of stones or the softness of creeping vines. These contrasts create harmony, ensuring the garden feels intentional, never cluttered. In a small space, this principle matters even more. Every inch carries weight, and each object plays a role in the composition. By thinking of your garden as an artwork, where plants, wood, and clay are brushstrokes, you can guide its mood. Too many bold tones, and the piece feels loud. Too little variety, and it becomes flat. But just enough of each creates a living harmony, vibrant yet calm. When harmony is achieved, your bromeliads no longer feel like decorations scattered across the garden. Instead, they become part of a greater whole, an environment that breathes gently, inviting you to step in, pause, and feel the quiet balance of nature. There is magic in variety, especially in small spaces. A single bromeliad can be striking, but when several colors gather together, the effect multiplies. A natural bouquet that glows brighter than any one plant alone. In a tiny garden, these clusters create abundance, giving the impression of richness without requiring more space. Picture a hollow tree trunk cradling a cluster of bromeliads, one with fiery red leaves, another with golden yellow bracts, and beside them, a deep green that calms the eye. Together they form a palette painted by nature herself. The shapes remain harmonious, their rosettes repeating a rhythm, while the colors dance in contrast. Old pots lend themselves well to this idea. Tilt one slightly, and let multiple bromeliads spill outward from its cracks and openings. The overlapping leaves create depth, a layered look that feels lush even in the smallest corner. When placed in sunlight, the colors seem to ignite, as though the garden were lit from within. The secret is in the mix. Bold shades shine brightest when balanced with softer tones, bright pinks beside gentle greens, glowing yellows softened by earthy moss. This arrangement not only pleases the eye but also keeps the garden from feeling crowded. Each plant has its role, and together they tell a story of harmony in diversity. For those with limited space, this approach is genius. Instead of spreading plants thinly across the garden, concentrate them. Create little bursts of life, clusters that act as radiant focal points. Visitors will be drawn to them, pausing to admire the kaleidoscope of colors. And each time you step outside, you'll find joy in the way bromeliad. A garden feels most alive when it carries the imprint of the gardener. Bromeliads bring their natural brilliance, but when paired with personal accents, small touches made by your own hand, the space becomes more than beautiful. It becomes yours, infused with story and meaning. Imagine a cracked clay pot, not discarded but painted with simple patterns that echo your style, swirls, leaves, or even a favorite symbol. Within it, bromeliads flourish, their vivid colors made brighter by the contrast of your designs. Or perhaps a smooth river stone, hand-painted in soft tones, rests at the base of a trunk, catching the eye as a quiet signature of your presence. These details do not need to be grand. A carved piece of driftwood, a small handmade sculpture, or even shells collected from travels can become part of the display. Placed alongside bromeliads, they add layers of story, giving the viewer not just a scene to admire but a sense of the person who shaped it. What matters most is balance. The accent should not overshadow the plants but frame them, much like jewelry frames the glow of a face. The rustic beauty of bromeliads remains the centerpiece, while your personal touches whisper softly in the background, adding warmth and individuality. For visitors, these accents become delightful discoveries, small surprises that reveal themselves with a second glance. And for you, they bring a sense of connection, turning your tiny garden into more than a display of plants. It becomes a sanctuary that reflects not only nature's artistry, but also the creativity and soul of the gardener who tends it. When the sun sets, a garden does not have to sleep. With the right lighting, bromeliads can transform into glowing sculptures, their colors deepened by the night, their forms standing out like lanterns in the dark. The trick is subtlety, gentle light that reveals, not overwhelms. Imagine a rustic tree trunk in your garden. By day it is textured and weathered, but at night, a soft light at its base lifts its details into view. The bromeliad perched within its crevice glows, reds appearing richer, greens more mysterious. Against the surrounding shadows, it feels almost enchanted, as though the garden is whispering secrets after dusk. Fairy lights wrapped loosely around old pots add another kind of magic. Their warm glow softens the edges, highlighting the plants without stealing their presence. A small spotlight hidden behind a stone can cast light upward, illuminating bromeliads from below, turning each rosette into a radiant bloom of color. The effect is not only beautiful but practical. In small gardens, light expands the space, creating focal points that draw the eye where you want it to linger. It also makes the garden enjoyable at times when it is often forgotten. During evening gatherings, quiet reflection, or simply a moment with tea beneath the stars. You don't need expensive equipment to achieve this. Simple solar-powered lights, fairy strings, or small spot lamps are enough. The key is placement. Let the light caress the leaves, highlight the textures of wood and clay, and leave some corners in shadow so the balance remains natural. In the end, lighting allows your bromeliads to shine twice, once under the sun and once under the gentle glow of night, reminding you that beauty has no curfew. A wall, often seen as the edge of a space, can become the heart of a garden. With reclaimed wood panels, even the plainest surface transforms into a canvas, and bromeliads are the colors that bring it to life. Together they create a living artwork, one that changes with the light, the seasons, and the slow rhythm of growth. Imagine a panel of weathered planks, their surfaces rough with age, carrying the memory of time. Into small crevices or pockets lined with moss, bromeliads are tucked securely. Their leaves burst outward, red against gray wood, green against golden tones, turning the wall into something alive, something breathing. The genius of reclaimed wood lies not just in its rustic charm but in its sustainability. By using what once seemed useless, you honor the story of the material while giving it a second life. Every crack, every knot becomes part of the design, a texture that frames the brilliance of the plants. Arranging bromeliads on panels also saves precious ground space. For tiny gardens, patios, or balconies, this vertical approach offers abundance without clutter. By placing plants at varying heights and mixing colors thoughtfully, the wall becomes a tapestry, an ever-changing painting shaped by sun and shadow. When evening comes, a soft light cast across the panel makes the colors glow, as if the artwork itself were illuminated from within. Visitors pause, surprised, not by the idea of plants on a wall but by how naturally they belong there. This is the soul of garden design, turning limits into possibilities, forgotten wood into art, and ordinary walls into living expressions of nature. With bromeliads as your brushstrokes, your reclaimed panel becomes a masterpiece of color, texture, and life. A wall, often seen as the edge of a space, can become the heart of a garden. With reclaimed wood panels, even the plainest surface transforms into a canvas, and bromeliads are the colors that bring it to life. Together they create a living artwork, one that changes with the light, the seasons, and the slow rhythm of growth. Imagine a panel of weathered planks, their surfaces rough with age, carrying the memory of time. Into small crevices or pockets lined with moss, bromeliads are tucked securely. Their leaves burst outward, red against gray wood, green against golden tones, turning the wall into something alive, something breathing. The genius of reclaimed wood lies not just in its rustic charm but in its sustainability. By using what once seemed useless, you honor the story of the material while giving it a second life. Every crack, every knot becomes part of the design, a texture that frames the brilliance of the plants. Arranging bromeliads on panels also saves precious ground space. For tiny gardens, patios, or balconies, this vertical approach offers abundance without clutter. By placing plants at varying heights and mixing colors thoughtfully, the wall becomes a tapestry, an ever-changing painting shaped by sun and shadow. When evening comes, a soft light cast across the panel makes the colors glow, as if the artwork itself were illuminated from within. Visitors pause, surprised, not by the idea of plants on a wall but by how naturally they belong there. This is the soul of garden design, turning limits into possibilities, forgotten wood into art, and ordinary walls into living expressions of nature. With bromeliads as your brushstrokes, your reclaimed panel becomes a masterpiece of color, texture, and life.